everybody. This Tuesday will be the holiday of Shavuot. I'd like to share with you an interesting insight. If you recall, 3 years ago, the Patriots had a nearly perfect game. In the regular season, they won game after game. It looked like they were going to have a perfect season. Then finally, in the final game, the game against the Giants, they lost the Super Bowl. They broke that perfect streak. So we can recall the thrill of being able to keep a perfect sequence going, game after game, win after win. And finally, the greater the sequence is, the greater the chain is, the greater the frustration is after it's broken, right? Because they went so well for the entire season, it was so frustrating. And finally, the last game to break that sequence. Here's another analogy. Let's imagine I made a commitment to avoid saying lashon hara, negative gossip, for as long as I can. And I go for 1,000 days not saying one word of lashon hara. 100 days not saying one word. Then 200 days, 300 days, 500 days, perfect sequence of not saying one word of lashon hara. Then finally, on the 1,000th day, I go 1,000 days of a perfect sequence. Finally, I just break it and I slip. So it's extremely frustrating. Because I had such a perfect sequence, it's so frustrating after it's finally broken. In a certain sense, that's the way we can look at Shavuot. Shavuot, we know, is a holiday in which we recall the giving of the Torah. Now, the Jewish people have a unique story. With every other religion, the religion begins with a charismatic individual who claims to have revelation and inspires the people around him to listen to his revelation. And they believe him because they believe his story. Our story is totally different. We didn't have to be convinced that someone heard a story. We all heard it ourselves. The entire nation, every one of our grandparents, heard the Almighty speak at Har Sinai. Right? We don't have to take anyone's word for it. The whole entire nation heard it and passed that story down to their children and theirs to theirs. So this story is 3,300 years old. And we have an amazing streak going. Right? Every one of us today who identifies as being Jewish, who observes the Torah, right, does so because they have a 3,300-year streak behind them. Right? Imagine how frustrating it would be after 3,000 years, the chain stops. The sequence breaks. There was once a Jewish group that needed to rent out a hotel for an event they were running. And they were negotiating with the hotel management, the proper protocols that were needed for keeping the kitchen kosher. And the hotel was asking them to make certain compromises for the laws of kashrut. And one of the rabbis there said, we really can't negotiate this. This is the way we've been doing it for 3,300 years. And the chef, a Chinese chef who was present, exclaimed, 3,300 years? That's one chain I wouldn't want to break. So that's another perspective on what Shavuot is all about. We are maintaining this chain of Masorah after 3,300 years. We have to do our best as parents and teachers to make sure this chain goes on at least another 3,300 years. We all have a very wonderful Shabbos and a wonderful Shavuot.